Welcome back to the CSP Elite Baseball Development Podcast. I'm your host, Eric Cressey, and we are here with episode 38 of Pinch Hit Friday. This has become a popular weekly series. Good chance for me to do just an 8 to 10 minute brain dump on a topic that I think is important. And this week, we want to talk about the 7 characteristics of durable baseball players. We're going to talk about baseball because it is a unique sport in kind of the way the calendar is structured, particularly at the professional level, but also in the amateur ranks. Aren't many other sports where you might play 2 games in a day, 5 games in 3 days, anything like that. But there are a lot of lessons here that will apply regardless of the sport we're talking about. So when I look at the players that we see that have been really durable in this game, certainly at the major league level, but also on the amateur side of things, first and foremost, number one, you've got to have a high quality offseason, right? That's something that's properly periodized, meaning there's an end to your competitive calendar and a start to your true offseason focus. So what I would tell you is if you play baseball year round, you don't by definition have an offseason. So that's the first mistake we see on the amateur side, is there should be clearly defined lines of when the season starts and stops. I think this is one of the biggest challenges in kind of the college game where, you have a competitive season that may run February through late May, early June, and then it breaks for a couple weeks and they go to summer ball and they play that for a couple months and then it's off for August and they go to fall ball and they play competitively for 6 or 8 weeks in the fall. And before you know it, you've had 3 mini seasons throughout the year. It's ramp up, shut down, ramp up, shut down. And what's interesting is we saw a study that looked at the Pac-12 and actually found that injury rates were up 500% over the past few years. So I think this is largely due to the fact that there is so much ramp up and shut down in the college game. There are a million other factors as well, but I do think that, you get away with much, much less with how guys are throwing so much harder if you ramp them up and shut them down frequently. So with anyone we deal with, we try to have a clearly defined calendar of what is and isn't the in-season, period. And we try to work on different qualities over the course of the off-season, right? Early in the off-season where we're going to really prioritize work capacity, recouping strength and joint-specific stability and all those things that are really hard to get when you're throwing and hitting and sprinting every single day. And then over the course of the offseason, we can prioritize different specific qualities. And then we can build up to, true baseball activities, gradual on-ramp of timing your cleats, running the bases, all those things that are so important for being successful on the field, rather than just trying to be good at everything all the time. Okay, so number 1 is high quality offseason. Number 2 is an elite daily warm up, right? Baseball is a really long season, right? In the professional ranks, you're looking at, probably 200 games in 230 days between spring training and the season and the postseason. Certainly in the major leagues, 162 games, 2 to 3 off days per month. It's really, really easy just to skip on a warm up. It's easy to get lazy with getting your body hot. And sometimes you may have to warm up multiple times per day, right? Major leaguers might report to the clubhouse at, 1 o'clock for a 7 o'clock game. And maybe they're doing some early hitting, then they're chilling for a bit. And then maybe they're actually going out and doing some on-field defense or hitting on the field potentially. Then they're chilling, they're having dinner. And then the game happens at 7. So there may actually be 3 warm-ups that night, maybe even more if you're a guy who's pinch running in the 8th inning or something to that effect. So you either need to make a point of kind of staying hot throughout the day, which is something I talk about with relief pitchers when they don't know when they're going to go into a game, or you're someone that has to have a clearly defined, routine warm-up that you could do in your sleep just to get your body temperature up, get a little sweat going before you pick up a baseball or a bat. So elite daily warm-ups go a really long way. When you see the guys that break down in this game, it's a lot of times because they aren't good about getting their body temperature up, and they also aren't good about using their warm-ups to work on their specific limitations, right? If you got stiff thoracic spine, you want some T-spine mobility work. If you got, hips that don't work the way they should, you've got to get some extra hip mobility in your warm-ups. These things really magnify over time, and I know it's a hackney expression, but I often say small hinges swing big doors. Having a good warm-up really can improve movement quality over the course of time. Number 3, good nutrition, right? Baseball is by definition a snacking sport, right? You're at the field for so long, the games can go so long. Everyone's been in that situation where you show up to play a game and there's a rain delay and then it restarts and you realize you haven't eaten for 7 hours, you're starving by the 7th inning or something like that. So baseball is a snacking sport and you have to really stay on top of eating the right things instead of just nibbling on what's convenient and may just be a bunch of sugar-laden crap. And underneath this umbrella is hydration, right? I actually saw 2 separate players this week who were in town for, a couple tournaments that were, really, really well renowned, and, they were competitive, where guys were, playing and advancing, and saw them later in the day, and they reported their weights. And then we jumped them on the force plates not long thereafter. They were actually about 10 pounds lighter than they claimed they were. And a lot of it was probably dehydration, not getting enough fluids in and not being aware of how their weights may fluctuate. So I always tell athletes, weigh yourself frequently, particularly if you're kind of an undersized teenager and you're still figuring out your routine. It is a good awareness piece to make sure that you know how much is going in terms of calories, hydration, electrolytes. But big picture, I think, nutrition is huge for any kind of sports, has a direct role in, managing the amount of inflammation in our body and the energy levels that we have when we go and participate. And I can't tell you how many athletes in their 30s tell me that they wish they had prioritized nutrition more early in their career. They realized that they were just getting away with things, by eating crap. And unfortunately, they never really knew what it was like to feel good. So it's a cheat code. If you spend a lot of time on the nutrition front early in your career, it will pay off exponentially down the road. Number 4, good sleep, right? Sleep is vital. It's upstream from everything, right? It gives you better energy levels during the day. We know sleep deprivation impacts reaction times and cognition and all these other things that you need to be successful as an athlete. We know it has, important implications in terms of your endocrine system, right? If you're sleep deprived, you're going to, not just have lower testosterone levels and higher cortisol levels, you're also going to see less growth hormone output, during sleep periods. You may actually overeat because of the impact on leptin levels. So sleeping is vital. And I'm always surprised that athletes, miss the low-hanging fruit here. They're staring at their cell phones right before they go to bed. They're sleeping in rooms with, too much natural light that's creeping in, or they've got TVs running while they're trying to go to sleep. Some athletes don't do well with, big meals right before bed. There's all these different things that you can do to improve your sleep environment, and so many athletes miss out on it. So make the room super cold, make it super dark, have a winding down routine to basically transition from this, crazy world we live in to actually getting to sleep. And then certainly there are various sleep supplements out there that can help athletes, if they are still struggling. Certainly learning how to turn your brain off is a big part of this as well. So there is a mental skills kind of aspect of it where, some athletes will do well in meditation in that period, but the solution's a little bit different for everybody. So I'd encourage you, if you're struggling with this, to connect with a sleep specialist, or at least, talk with your strength and conditioning coach, your athletic trainer, your mental conditioning coaches that you have available in your corner, and they'll help you to work through it. Number 5, good volume management. This is something that I've seen a lot over the years, and you don't see it with everybody, but you usually see it bad with certain people. And that's that they use their bullets in all the wrong places, right? This is the athlete that goes 0 for 4 with 3 strikeouts at the plate. And so they go to the cages after the game and they hit until their hands bleed. They try to figure it out. And in some cases, they're trying to take like a fitness solution to, what's a fatigue problem. Maybe they're already tired and they just need to rest. Or maybe it was an approach thing that, it's not necessarily going to be fixed just by going and hitting in the cages more. Or it's the athlete that has a bad outing and then goes and just absolutely blows it out in the gym thereafter, taking off, blowing off their steam. There's all these different ways that athletes sometimes pile a bunch of extra volume into their routines and actually make themselves worse and more susceptible to injury. So, sometimes it's really hard to outwork your problems. There is a time for, getting after it and putting in high quality work. But if there's one thing I've seen from a lot of the big leaguers who are super durable, they're playing 160 games. They understand when it's time to lay on a table and get a massage or take a nap versus going out and taking extra BP or forcing more fatigue on their systems. So a little bit less of an issue with younger players, but certainly as we see athletes, go further and further up the ranks, they get a little bit older and their recovery capacity isn't what it's supposed to be. Good volume management becomes extra important, particularly at the major league level where travel is crazy and you have you have a smaller, kind of window of error that you can take advantage of with respect to all things volume management. Number 6, mental resilience, right? And this kind of builds on the last one, the example I did, but failure is part of the game. And a crappy day can't turn your routine upside down, right? Some guys have a bad day and they get hopeless. Some guys have a bad day and they throw everything that's ever worked for them out the window and they try something completely different. And sometimes it leaves them more susceptible to injury because they try something that doesn't pay off and they actually injure themselves, or they get away from the routines that actually help to keep them durable in the first place. So struggle is a part of baseball. Good hitters, might get out 70% of the time. Good pitchers, I always tell people, even if you're a Cy Young Award winner, you got 33, 34 starts on the year, there are going to be a couple of clunkers in there, and they kind of just get canceled out by the complete game shutouts. And over the course of a season, you're still dominant, but you have to be willing to deal with failure all the time. What I think is vital to this is figuring out why you failed in real time. Don't be that starting pitcher that it takes the full 5 days to sort out. Be that starting pitcher that can figure it out between innings or between pitches or something like that. And that applies to your fitness, your physical preparation, just as much as it does your actual baseball components, right? And that last but not least, you have to be a good self-evaluator, right? If you're 6'2", 160 pounds, soaking wet, and you think that your problem is that you're not throwing enough innings, or you're not hitting enough in the cage, or you're not taking enough ground balls, you're not a great self-evaluator, right? Obviously, you're an athlete that needs to get bigger. You need to get stronger in order to compete at the next level and stay durable in doing so. So we see this a lot where athletes always want to take a baseball focus to what might be a physical problem, right? They want to bring the wrong solutions to the problem at hand. So it's on us to mentor these athletes, to educate them, to make them aware. I think historically young athletes on the male side of things actually do very well with comparisons. So one of the things that we'll do at our facility is we'll do, force plate testing on our Hawkins force plates. We'll do Proteus testing on the Proteus to give them an idea of just some of the forces that they're generating, both in the sagittal plane on a jump and then more rotationally with the Proteus, just to give them a little feel for kind of where they stand relative to our different percentile rankings by, age and position. And this really is an aha moment for a lot of athletes where they realize that 80% of their peers are ahead of them and they really need to buckle down and work on the physical side of things. I think historically when we see athletes that have broken over the course of time, there's kind of two big things that they did wrong. One, volume management was really, really poor, right? They just kept playing and playing and playing. But I think the other thing is, on the other side of this, is they just were never physically prepared enough to do that in the first place. So it's a lack of preparation, kind of taking a beat up old car to the Daytona 500. This is especially challenging if you have an athlete who, biomechanically, from just an anthropometric characteristics standpoint, they got long arms, long legs. They're kind of wired to throw a baseball hard. You throw that guy out to throw 120 innings as a 15-year-old before he's gotten bigger and stronger and really understood how to position his body in space. It's really not going to go well. So big picture, your 7 things: you got to have a high quality off season. You got to have elite daily warm-ups. You've got to have good nutrition. You've got to have good sleep. You've got to be aware of volume management. You have to have mental resilience, and you have to be a good self-evaluator. Those are all things that are vitally important for really long-term success in any sport, and certainly long-term durability in the context of baseball. So thanks so much for listening, and have a great weekend. This episode is brought to you by AG1, the most comprehensive NSF certified for sport daily nutritional supplement I've ever tried. With so many stressors in life, it can be difficult to maintain effective nutritional habits and give our bodies the nutrients they need to thrive. As a father of 3 young kids and a co-founder of multiple businesses in multiple states on top of still being an avid exerciser, I know that busy schedules can really take their toll on us. Whether it's poor sleep, exercise or life stressors, environmental factors, or simply not eating enough of the right foods, we can often wind up deficient nutritionally. This is where AG1 can really help. It's a game-changing nutritional insurance policy. They simplify the logistics of getting optimal nutrition on a daily basis by giving you just one thing with all the best things. That's why I use it daily, as do several of my family members, and we recommend it to a lot of our top athletes. 1 scoop of AG1 contains 75 vitamins, minerals, and whole food sourced ingredients that work together to fill the nutritional gaps in your diet to support energy, focus, digestion, and recovery. And this can all happen for less than $3 per day and without taking multiple products. While most nutritional supplements come to market and stay stagnant, AG1 continues to obsessively improve this one holistic formula based on the latest research, producing over 50 improvements in the last decade alone. They invest in the most absorbable and natural source of each ingredient and go above and beyond in third-party testing to ensure their customers continue to receive the highest quality and best tasting nutrition habit on the planet. Whether you're keto, paleo, vegan, dairy-free, or gluten-free, it'll work for you, and it contains less than 1 gram of sugar per serving. They put 75 ingredients through the rigorous NSF certification test to come up with a safe formula that's trusted by some of the world's top athletes, including many of our own at Cressey Sports Performance. Right now, AG1 is giving our listeners a special offer of 10 free travel packets with their first purchase. Just head to drinkag1.com/Cressey and claim this special offer. These travel packets are perfect for supporting your immune system, energy, and gut health while you're traveling for games, training, or simply on the go. They can be great counterbalance to the less than ideal on the road food options that are out there for a lot of our traveling baseball players. So if you want to bridge the gap between deficient and optimal and give yourself the best chance of getting nutrient diversity, head to drinkag1.com/Cressey to get 10 free travel packets with your first purchase. Again, that's drinkag1.com/Cressey, Cressey. You won't regret it.